The 1st of September, 1939. Nazi Germany invades Poland, which marks the beginning of the Second World War. The Nazis seek to destroy Polish culture and the Polish nation, and eliminate any resistance by arresting and murdering Poles. The Germans mean for Poland to be an endless supply of slave labor, and a site for the mass extermination of European Jewry. In the fall of 1941, Nazi Germany begins to implement a plan codenamed Operation Reinhard to systematically murder almost 2 million Jews living in the German-administered territory of occupied Poland called the General Government. 3 killing centers are established as part of this plan: Belzec, Treblinka, and Sobibor. One of the most sadistic officers at Sobibor will become Karl Frenzel. Karl August Wilhelm Frenzel, one of 3 sons of a railway worker, was born on the 20th of August 1911 in Zednik, then part of the German Empire. Frenzel was a carpenter by profession and a member of the Socialist Carpenters' Union. However, after passing the qualifying carpentry exam in 1930, he found himself unemployed. From 1930 to 1933, the global economic depression had ravaged Germany, leaving millions without work. Widespread unemployment, combined with the national humiliation after World War I, fueled public discontent. Many Germans viewed the parliamentary government as weak and ineffective in addressing the crisis. The economic misery, fear of a worsening future, and frustration with the government's failure created a fertile ground for Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party's rise. The Nazis promised to restore German cultural values, overturn the Treaty of Versailles, counter the perceived communist threat, provide employment, and return Germany to its rightful position as a global power. Karl Frenzel was among the millions who believed Hitler was Germany's only hope. In August 1930, he joined both the Nazi Party and the SA, or the Sturmabteilung, which was the Nazi paramilitary force also known as the Stormtroopers or Brown Shirts due to the color of their uniforms. By this time, Frenzel had been dating his first girlfriend, who was Jewish and whom he met in 1929. Their relationship ended after 2 years when her father discovered that Frenzel was a member of the Nazi Party. Several years later, she and her family emigrated to the United States to escape the growing anti-Semitic persecution in Germany. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. In the summer of the same year, Frenzel, thanks to his connections within the Nazi Party, was able to secure a position as a police officer. However, after a few months, he left the police and took a job in a metal products factory. In October 1934, Frenzel married his wife Sophia, and they bought the furniture of their new home from a Jewish merchant. Karl and Sophia were Christians, and they went to church. As Frenzel later claimed, if not every Sunday, at least every other or third Sunday. All of their 5 children were baptized. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. Shortly before the outbreak of the war, Frenzel learned that trustworthy party members were being sought to participate in a special task. This task turned out to be the Nazi Euthanasia program, codenamed T4, which involved the systematic murder of institutionalized patients with disabilities in Germany. The patients were transported by bus or by rail to 6 killing centers where they were murdered. In these centers, the Nazis gassed, shot, or killed by lethal injection those deemed unworthy of life, such as residents of welfare institutions, some concentration camp inmates, the chronically sick, the mentally and physically disabled, homosexuals, and even sick German soldiers. Frenzel initially served as a guard at the Euthanasia Center in Grafeneck. At the end of 1940, after a brief stay at the center in Bamberg, he began serving at the center in Hadamar. He worked there as a stoker and was responsible for removing the dead bodies from the gas chambers, extracting gold teeth, and burning the bodies, as well as various other tasks around the gas chambers and crematoria. It is also speculated that while at Hadamar, Frenzel helped in the design of the gas chambers. The T4 program predated the genocide of European Jewry, the Holocaust, by approximately 2 years. Historians estimate that the program claimed the lives of 250,000 men, women, and children. In the fall of 1941, Nazi Germany implemented a plan to systematically murder the 2 million Jews living in German-occupied Poland. This plan was codenamed Operation Reinhard, and as part of this action, 3 killing centers were established: Belzec, Treblinka, and Sobibor. In April 1942, because of his experience in the T4 program, Frenzel was sent to the Sobibor extermination camp in German-occupied Poland. Soon after his arrival, Frenzel took over as the head of Camp 1, the living area for working Jews, who were spared immediate death in the gas chambers. He often led the morning roll calls and was responsible for the security of Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, during his inspections at Sobibor. Along with his SS colleague Gustav Wagner, Frenzel was known as one of the most brutal officers. During the arrival of transports, he was usually on the camp ramp, overseeing the railway command. Together with Wagner, Frenzel decided the fate of new arrivals, determining who would be assigned to work and who would be sent directly to the gas chambers. He also singled out the elderly, sick, and young children without guardians for execution. Frenzel used a whip to enforce obedience and hasten the victims. He often shot Jews who refused to leave the train car or tried to hide. Frenzel brutally murdered small children and infants by tearing them apart with his bare hands or smashing their heads against the train cars. As the head of Camp 1, Frenzel had the power of life and death over the working Jews. He humiliated, terrorized, and mistreated prisoners, especially enjoying whipping them. Frenzel selected prisoners based on their ability to work, sending the sick and exhausted to be executed. When 2 Jews escaped, he personally selected about 10 to 20 prisoners who were then shot. During the execution of 72 Jewish men from the Netherlands, Frenzel ordered Dutch Jewish women to sing songs and organized a dance party. On another occasion, he and Wagner allegedly organized a shooting contest where they shot at buckets placed on prisoners' heads, killing 15 Jews. In the spring of 1943, when a worker prisoner tried to take his own life and was found dying, Frenzel shouted that Jews had no right to kill themselves and only Germans had the right to kill. He then whipped the dying man and killed him with a bullet. Frenzel was described by Holocaust survivors as a sadist and a killer without a conscience, who on top of the mass exterminations committed numerous other crimes. After the war, Erich Bauer, a Nazi SS officer, testified about a conversation he overheard in the canteen at Sobibor between Karl Frenzel, Gustav Wagner, and Franz Stangl, the camp's commandant. They were discussing the number of victims in the extermination camps of Belzec, Treblinka, and Sobibor. Shockingly, they expressed regret that Sobibor came last in this grim competition. In the summer of 1943, rumors began to circulate that Sobibor would soon cease operations, and the prisoners understood that this meant certain death for all of them. The Sobibor prisoners knew this because the Belzec prisoners, who did the same work, had sewn messages into their clothing before they were killed by Sobibor guards on the same day they arrived in the camp. The next day, the Sobibor prisoners found all their clothing full of blood. Chaim Engel, a Polish Jewish prisoner, found a note in a pocket which said, "We worked at Belzec for 1 year and did not know where we would be sent next. They said it would be Germany. Now we are in Sobibor and know what to expect. Be aware that you will be killed also. Avenge us." And they did. In September 1943, 20 Jewish Red Army prisoners of war, soldiers with the necessary expertise to pull off an escape, arrived at Sobibor on a transport from the Minsk ghetto and were selected for labor. One of them, Alexander Pechersky, would become a leader of the revolt, which began around 4 p.m. on the 14th of October 1943. 1 hour later, a total of 11 SS officers were killed by the rebels. Due to his prominent position in the camp, Frenzel was one of the main targets of the conspirators. Planning to eliminate him secretly, they invited him to the carpentry workshop, supposedly to collect a cabinet he had ordered. However, Frenzel did not appear at the workshop at the appointed time because he was taking a shower, and during the revolt, he tried to stop the escaping Jews with machine gun fire. Subsequently, due to the absence or death of several high-ranking SS officers, Frenzel temporarily took command of the camp's crew and called for help from the nearby SS and police units stationed near Sobibor. In total, approximately 300 prisoners were able to escape, but most of them were chased down and killed. In the end, some 50 of the escapees survived the war. In the following weeks, Frenzel participated in work related to the camp's liquidation. Between November and December 1943, along with Wagner, he oversaw the execution of groups of Jews brought to Sobibor from Treblinka camp to work on removing property, demolishing buildings, and erasing traces of the genocide. At the end of 1943, Frenzel was transferred to Italy, where he operated on the Adriatic coast and was tasked with eliminating local Jews and combating Yugoslav and Italian partisans. In the spring of 1944, he was seriously injured in a motorcycle accident and received the War Merit Cross Second Class. Towards the end of the war, Frenzel was captured by the Americans, and until mid-May 1945 was held in a prisoner of war camp near Munich. He was then released from captivity and in November 1945 returned home. Upon his arrival, Frenzel discovered that his wife Sophia was dying, as she had been raped and infected with typhoid fever by Soviet soldiers. After her death, he found a job in a film studio as a stage manager and soon also found a new life partner. In the early 1950s, the West German prosecutor's office initiated 2 preliminary investigations against Frenzel, related to his service in Sobibor and the Euthanasia Center in Hadamar. Both investigations were dropped because his whereabouts were unknown at the time. However, in March 1962, during a break at work, Frenzel was arrested, and in 1965 brought to trial. He was charged with the murder of 42 Jews and complicity in the extermination of an additional 250,000 Jews. During the interrogations, Frenzel expressed regret for the injustices suffered by Jews in Sobibor, but consistently denied committing any crimes. He even claimed that he was liked by the Jewish prisoners. In December 1966, Frenzel was proven guilty of the murder of 6 individuals and complicity in the murder of 150,000, and he was sentenced to the maximum punishment permitted under West German law, life imprisonment. Though in 1982, Frenzel was released on a technicality, he was again sentenced to life imprisonment. However, because of his advanced age and poor health, the sentence was not imposed, and he was released. In 1983, a Sobibor survivor, Thomas Blatt, interviewed Karl Frenzel, which was presumably the only time that a Nazi death camp supervisor was interviewed by a death camp prisoner. During the interview, Frenzel mentioned that he felt terrible for what had happened to the Jews, and that he paid his price by spending 16 years in prison. When Blatt asked him if he knew that there was a plaque at the Sobibor camp entrance which reads, "Here the Nazis killed 250,000 Russian prisoners of war, Jews, Poles and Gypsies," Frenzel's eyes immediately lit up and he answered excitedly, "Poles were not killed there. Gypsies were not killed there. Russians were not killed there. Only Jews. Russian Jews, Polish Jews, Dutch Jews, French Jews." Karl Frenzel was 85 years old when he died on the 2nd of September 1996 in a nursing home near Hanover. There were no tears shed for Karl Frenzel. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.